All right. Well, hope everybody's having a good day. Here on Monday, it's just after 3. We're a little late, but we're gonna let people get in here. I'm gonna share this out real quick and let some people get in here and start chatting. So hopefully you guys have fun, plenty of questions, plenty of things to talk about as I work to get this rolling here. Also, starting up my work on my top 25, which will drop tomorrow. So if you got any questions about that, go ahead and feel free to ask. I'm sure I got plenty of answers. All right. Again, just carrying through. Probably take another minute while I'm working on this to allow people to get in here. If you're tuning in, make sure you leave a like. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Comment down below. Let's get this chat going. I'll answer questions as they come in, as I normally do on these. And again, I will get into some of the conversation parts here very shortly. I will say we've got some new faces. Yeah, I know. Ignore the dog. Somebody is doing carpentry next door. Somewhere. But anyways. All right. So I've rolled through my top 10 so far. And those that are tuning in here. Um, Let me know what you think of this top 10. We got Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, top 5. Miami, Penn State, Oregon, Missouri, Ole Miss as the top 10. So that's a little bit of a sneak peek. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but if you guys are interested in more here, tune in tomorrow because that's where I do my top 25 rankings every Tuesday on the show. Actually, why am I going to do that? All right, well, that was a pretty solid group bit of time spent. 8 minutes in, so I apologize for the lack of talking. Again, just kind of letting everybody get in here. But I got my top 25 done, so I think you should definitely tune in tomorrow when I upload the video tomorrow. Of course, we're previewing Rutgers and Nebraska, which is going to be a really fun game, a game with two teams that I have fringe top 25 right now. So it'll be a really fun matchup to see who can take over and potentially punch their ticket to the top 25. Looking at it again here. I'm going to drop. Closing all this stuff out. Getting rid of all these things that don't need to be there for the moment. But as we stand, let's go ahead and start talking about a little bit the week that was week 5 of the college football season. So as I pull up ESPN here, let's go ahead and get into this conversation a little bit, okay? And we will start, of course, with the game that everybody's talking about, game of the year. I mean, really hard to go any other direction. I mean, it was set up as the game of the year, and it turned into arguably the top candidate right now. So, Alabama and Georgia. And Alabama jumps out to a 30-7 lead in the first half. And I talked about this in the video that was uploaded today. So if you've seen that video, you're kind of going to get a reiteration of things I've already said. However, Jalen Milroe played fantastic in this game. I mean, he was Heisman moments, I think, left and right, especially in that first half. And then you get to the second half, and you know things kind of slow down, but you get that late game pass touchdown to Ryan Williams, which obviously gave them the lead and ultimately the win. You just look at everything that was done down the stretch of this game, and you think Jalen Milroe probably took control of his own Heisman destiny. And of course, Alabama's got more games that they can really fill that resume with. I mean, they play Tennessee still. They got Auburn, of course, as you would expect. And that's, granted, that's not a huge thing to say, but the Auburn defense isn't terrible. They got Missouri still. They have South Carolina in a couple weeks. LSU, Oklahoma. Like, they still have games where they can go out and you can see Jalen Milroe continue to pad that Heisman resume. Right now, FanDuel has him as the #1 Heisman Trophy candidate, and for obvious reasons. So, you see this game, and I'm not trying to go all 22 because I don't have film to show you. You just watch this game and you think that it was everything that it was hyped up to be. And it's fantastic when you get those moments, especially in college football. The game is so special. And you watch that last sequence of that game, the last 3 or 4 possessions of that game, and you tell me that's not what college football is about. Georgia played their hearts out and came back, and they looked okay, but to be completely honest with you, I don't think that this Georgia team is as good as teams in years past. I don't think they have that proven weapon. I think Dominic Levitt's as close as you're going to get to that. And I think Carson Beck struggled at quarterback, especially in this game. That was the most turnovers he's had in his time at Georgia, I'm pretty sure. 3 interceptions and 1 big one down in the end zone late. Now, you could argue a handful of things on that, and I'm not going to, but the play before that should have been pass interference. I mean, if that play is called correctly, it's PI most times, more times than not. Then you get the very next play, the same DB, the same freshman defensive back, and I apologize, I'm not getting the name off the top of my head, so I'm going to go look for it real quick. Xavier Brown is who it was. I mean, we watched Brown go in there, and like I said, it should have been pass interference. That was the same DB in the same position, same exact route. And in that one, there's one thing that I will say about this that will be film related. If you go and watch those plays, okay, Carson Beck played them completely opposite to what he should have on consecutive plays. The first play, where he should have led the receiver to the back of the end zone, instead he underthrows him, almost tries to back shoulder him, and Xavier Brown makes contact, no call, so be it, incomplete pass. So you turn around and you think, okay, if your guy's got a step this time, you're gonna throw it ahead. Well, in this case, Brown was a little more ready, obviously, because he just got beat on the play before. So this time Beck tries to tries to lead his receiver. Still a poorly placed football, nonetheless. Tries to lead his receiver and throws it directly into the hands of the DB on a play where he probably should have hit the back shoulder or even just thrown the ball away. Not the greatest thing we've seen from Carson Beck. I think he's a heck of a player. I think he's a heck of a quarterback, but I do think that Georgia has some flaws, especially at quarterback, when he's not comfortable. And to be honest, they have some games remaining on the schedule that I don't think he's going to be comfortable in. I think Tennessee is going to create some issues for them. Georgia also plays Texas in a couple weeks on October 19th. That's going to create some problems. Ole Miss could create some problems. They have a pretty decent front seven. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing great. But they have a decent enough front seven, and they can create some issues too. I'm not saying Georgia goes 9-3. I'm not even saying they lose another game this year. It's possible they could roll through the rest of the season and be unscathed. But it's cause for concern because they really did not look the part of a top 5 team in the first half of that game. Their comeback, of course, they looked just like the Georgia teams that we expect them to look like. But when crunch time came, they kind of reverted back a little bit. Specifically, Carson Beck reverted back. So, a great game nonetheless. I mean, it was fantastic, start to finish. And to be completely honest, definitely my top game of the year candidate so far. So, looking back on that, getting the elephant in the room out of the way, fantastic football game. Alabama is rising, obviously, in my poll. I mean, they're not going to go to number 1, okay, even though the resume definitely is nice. I'm debating them at 2 just based off resume, but when I look at the teams that are around Ohio State, Texas, I still think Ohio State and Texas are better, and I think they're far enough better. Remember, I do mine in a way where if I think teams are close, I just kind of go by the eye test. I go by who I think is better, who's played better to this point. Right now, I still have Texas and Ohio State as the better teams, but Alabama's got a really impressive win at home. The Texas will be able to match, of course, in a couple weeks. And Texas also has a win at Michigan, which Michigan's not great. I don't think Michigan is a win you need to write home about at this point in the season. But they do have a win in a really tough environment in week 2. So we will see what that amounts to. Right now, though, Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, really in a good spot. And we'll go ahead and talk about Texas, the number 1 team that was playing on Saturday. They were at home. Arch Manning's first SEC start, and he didn't play bad. 324 yards, 2 touchdowns. They played pretty solid. A little slow, but eventually they pulled away. They win 35-13. Really nothing to be concerned about. We got to see the first start from Michael Van Buren, a true freshman at Mississippi State, and Jeff Levy specifically was able to flip from Oregon to come down to Starkville. And so far, so good. I mean, things looked all right. He was not, you got what you expected from a true freshman in a big moment like that, in a big environment. But at the end of the day, they hung around in the game till, we went down a stretch and we just showed that kind of Mississippi State's not better. And that's okay. We don't expect Mississippi State to be better. But they hung around for a little bit. They did a lot better than everybody expected. They were a 44-point dog, and they only lost by 22. So they didn't do as bad as people say. Texas, on the other hand, still looking the part. They got some interesting schedule, but they got a bye week, and then they get 2 straight big-time games. Obviously, the Red River game against Oklahoma, we know that that's going to be a game with a lot of emotion, a lot of intensity. And then, again, they're hosting Georgia in 3 weeks in DKR. That's going to be a fantastic football game. You look the rest of the way, though, if they can get through there with even just 1 loss, they really don't have a huge threat to them until they play Texas A&M late in the season, and even then, that does not look near as good as it did preseason. So, Texas seemingly in a pretty good spot going forward. I can go back to Friday real quick. Miami hosted Virginia Tech. We talked about this on Saturday, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Miami did what they needed to do. They won the game. They got some help because the referees did overturn a call that I don't think they had the ability or really the right to overturn. Now, that's one of those that you just leave it as it is on the field and move on. Miami would have lost. However, they didn't. The score says 38-34 Miami, so that's what I'm going by. Miami wins the game. Cam Ward played well. 343 yards, 4 touchdowns. Eventually, Virginia Tech kind of got themselves going a little bit. But I just have a hard time with this Miami team really giving them a whole lot of credit because I can see it coming. Like, you can see the loss coming at some point for this Miami team. We don't know when. But you just, I mean, again, you could argue all you want, especially if you're a Virginia Tech fan, that it should have been Saturday or Friday night, but it wasn't. So where is that loss coming? Again, they got a game against Louisville. I think that's the toughest team remaining on their schedule. But they got that game at Louisville in 3 weeks on October 19th, which is slowly becoming a very good um, slate of college football. October 12th and 19th. I mean, we got two really good weeks back to back in week 7 and 8. But they're also going on the road to Cal, and Cal's getting game day for the first time this week. Could Cal maybe do it? I don't think so. I think Cal has some problems that they got to work out. And truth be told, it's more than just talent. I mean, they got Jaden Ott, who hasn't necessarily been what we expected him to be. Mendoza's been okay, but I mean, it wasn't anything to write home about even in that Florida State game. So I think Miami will walk through Berkeley okay, but I think this road trip, the back-to-back road trips, especially their 2 longer road trips between Berkeley and Louisville, I think they're going to get caught on that road trip up there against the Cardinals. Look, Jeff Fromm's team, I know they're coming off of a loss. I know they went to Notre Dame and they lost by 7. It's not like they lost horribly. I think this Louisville team has the potential to win this game and maybe set themselves up. Remember, that's not a conference game, no matter the affiliation Notre Dame has with the ACC. Louisville still hasn't lost a conference game yet. So they can go ahead and roll through here, get a win, and then next thing you know, they're in the driver's seat to go to Charlotte. And Miami, again, they're due for it, and you can just tell, especially with that game against Virginia Tech, that's the games that they kind of fall asleep on. But I think that Louisville actually matches up really well. Could have this game being really close. So you got that. Florida State, obviously we all know Florida State is not what they were last year or even close. You have Duke, maybe, but I doubt it. Georgia Tech, maybe, I doubt it. Wake Forest, not happening. Syracuse, maybe, but again, doubt it. So really, your best bet if you're, I guess, a hater for Miami is Louisville. But for me, it's not really a point of hate or dislike. I just don't think that they are going to get through this season unscathed. I don't see them going undefeated. Yeah, I got the game on back there because also I'm a baseball guy too. Baseball, hockey, and football are my things, and yeah, this is a interesting doubleheader going on back there. So if you're seeing it, I'm sorry. Hopefully I don't get wrecked by ESPN or something on the background. But I'm trying to pay attention to it all. Let's move forward. Ohio State and Michigan State. Look, this is actually a better Michigan State team than they looked on Saturday. I know they got beat pretty bad by Ohio State, but Aiden Childs, if he can gather those interception problems, I mean, he's thrown, I think, I'm going to have to go double check these numbers. He had 1 in this game. I think he's got 8 on the season. He's five touchdowns, 8 picks on the year. If he can dial those back, I think Michigan State beats a team like Michigan, as they go through this season. And that would be huge for their confidence itself. I mean, this is a team that has had moments. They lost to Boston College in a really close game. They obviously just got beat on Saturday. But they did beat Maryland on the road. And Maryland is a team that's pretty even with them. Pretty much not really sure what they are yet. They go on the road this Friday to play Oregon. I don't think they're going to win that game. I don't think they beat Iowa. But again, I think they could beat that Michigan team even in Ann Arbor. So that's going to be a game that you got to watch for if you're really kind of looking for where Michigan State's going to come into their own. It could be there. I don't think they're going to beat Indiana, but I'm really high on Indiana. The more I watch them play, the better I tend to think they are. Illinois, no. Purdue and Rutgers, they could probably win, especially as they go through this season. I don't expect bowl game for Michigan State, even if they beat a team like Michigan. But just understand that they're going to probably improve. I think Aiden Childs, again, just dials back those turnovers. You dial those down, which he did a good job of against Ohio State. Maybe there's something there, but again, hard to say. Ohio State, on the other hand, I think they're the second best team in the country. I think they're just behind Texas, but it's like you couldn't even fit a piece of paper between those two teams on paper. Kentucky goes on the road to Oxford, pulls off a huge upset, one of their biggest wins in recent memory. And, this is after they hung around with Georgia a couple weeks ago. And you just wondered if they could get it done. And the biggest question I have coming out of this isn't really about Kentucky. I think I know what Kentucky is at this point. An above average team when it comes to the SEC. Now, I'm not talking about college football. I think in college football, they're a good team. But if we're talking about just the SEC, that kind of shrinks your level, your margin of error. It shrinks. It makes a good team look average in the SEC. Let's just put it that way. Let me just be simple with it. One thing I noticed about this game, and one thing I talked about earlier today in the video I just uploaded, previewing Ole Miss and South Carolina, is that the Kentucky D-line, the Kentucky front seven as a whole, created a big issue for Jackson Dart, created a big issue for the Ole Miss offensive line. How does that transfer forward for both Kentucky and Ole Miss? Well, for Kentucky, they have a lot of games that they're going to be able to win by being dominant at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They're a pretty good team on the line of scrimmage. The biggest issue, kind of similar to what we just talked about with Aiden Chiles, just taking care of the ball, making smarter decisions, and that's Brock Vandegrift. If he can do that, this Kentucky team could probably turn into a 6, 7, 8 win team. But right now, I'm just not fully sure with what they have remaining on the schedule. Thankfully, they have teams like Vanderbilt, Florida, and Auburn to play, and then Murray State. So, as a matter of fact, there's 4 wins, so that's at least 7. And then if they pull an upset against Tennessee, Texas, Louisville, you never know. So, Kentucky, I think it's a good team. They're going to be able to ride that dominance on the line of scrimmage a good way through the season. As for Ole Miss, the biggest question I have going out of that game is just, can their offensive line hang around in these bigger games? Because that was the worst they've looked so far, and it was just simply because they weren't giving Jackson Dart enough time. He was having to run around, create a lot of things. And that works to a degree, but every single week, 3 to 4 times every single possession is not going to be good enough. And they're going to go on the road to Columbia this week and play a team who's just as good on the line of scrimmage, if not better, especially on the defensive line. You got guys like Dylan Stewart, Kyle Kennard. This is going to be problematic again on Saturday, and I think South Carolina's going to hang around in that game for that reason. Ole Miss, I just need to see more out of them as we go forward. We saw them at the start of the season. They looked fantastic. You can look at the numbers because I still have the preview in here. You can look at the numbers. 390 yards through the air, 216 on the ground. They took care of business in the big games, but they just did not do it this week. They were under 100 yards rushing in the game on Saturday. And Jackson Dart was under 300 passing in the game on Saturday. And he really wasn't the problem. Again, it was just the offensive line. That line could not give him the time he needed. Yeah, and I'll answer you, Josh, in the chat. Kentucky, I don't think they're bad at bringing a quarterback. I think they're bad at utilizing their quarterbacks. I think they finally kind of started to get an idea of what they could do. And truthfully, part of that just relies on trusting their wide receivers a little more. I mean, they've got guys who can make plays, and they just haven't given them the opportunity to make said plays. This week was one of the first times we really saw it, and we saw guys like Barry and Brown, Dane Key start to really step up. And there's other guys in this roster. I look at Jamori Macklin, for example, who had 1 catch for 2 yards. I mean, Jamori Macklin coming over from North Texas could have done so much more and can still do so much more in this roster and on this team, but he just hasn't gotten there yet. It'll be an interesting team to watch going forward. Both sides of this game will be interesting to watch going forward. And again, I'm really looking next Saturday, Columbia, South Carolina. Can Ole Miss create time for Jackson Dart? If not, it might be an upset kind of a day once again, just the same way we felt a few weeks ago when LSU went in there. Yeah, I mean, look, there's one thing Kentucky's done okay with, and that's utilizing the transfer portal. I think that the thing that goes unnoticed is how much you have to like how right everything has to go in that, and how well you have to do at just developing those guys, because they pulled Will Levis from Penn State, who hadn't started a game at Penn State, and they went and pulled Devin Leary and had no wide receivers to utilize with him. Now they have the wide receivers, especially the experience at wide receiver, and now they're playing the same way they did when they had Will Levis and no wide receiver room. It's just a matter of adjusting to your personnel, and finally they did that on Saturday. I want to see that the rest of the year. Continue to do that, and you turn into that team that, to be honest, I had been kind of right on that fringe. Are they going to make the playoff or not at 9-3? I don't think I had them fully going 9-3, but I definitely could have seen a path. And right now, obviously, I do not. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they push forward. Again, just adjusting their play calling to the personnel. That they've just been, that's been their biggest weakness at any point in the last probably 5 or 6 years. Oregon went on the road to UCLA, won big. I'm not even going to talk about this game. Oregon's doing what they're supposed to do. They're finally kind of getting things figured out, getting things together. UCLA, on the other hand, is just really bad, and there's not really much else to say. I think it's unfortunate that everything was left the way it was, but that's, again, the state of college football. Penn State was able to win 21-7 over Illinois. That was just a really big defensive slugfest, Big Ten style football game. Illinois was not fazed by the lights, by the whiteout environment. It was not really a whiteout, or at least on paper, it wasn't a whiteout. Penn State is still a really good team. I think they're well versed to make a run in the playoffs if they get there. I don't know that they will. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I think they could. And when you watch this team play, they look a lot different than last year, but yet things still stayed the same because they're still very physical at the line of scrimmage. They're a very good team when it comes to just moving the ball on the ground. And it can be either running back at any time. It could be Nick Singleton. It could be Katron Allen. Take your pick. One of them could go for 100 any given week. But then you look at the passing game, and you still, the biggest question mark that Penn State has ever had at this point in the season, and it's been the same from the beginning to now, do they have a wide receiver who can step up on a week in, week out basis? And right now they don't. They're not even close. They got Tyler Warren, who's at tight end, and who's been really good for them. But when you look at the actual wide receiver position, they don't have it. And I don't know where they're going to find it. I don't know when they're going to find it. It felt like they found it back at the West Virginia game. But since then, we haven't, at the same time, they haven't played anybody to the caliber that they just did with Illinois. I'll be intrigued to see how things move forward for Penn State and how they are able to continue to hopefully get more confidence in themselves and their wide receiver room to maybe make that run in the playoffs. Because I think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're going to lose more than 2 games if they do that. So this is a team that my eyes are definitely on. I'm definitely watching to see how they improve as the season goes, because I think they're a legit contender. Arizona was able to go in and beat Utah on the road, and they did it pretty convincingly. Now, the biggest thing was that Utah was actually not too bad in this game. Even without Cam Rising, Isaac Wilson came out and had 280 yards passing. He was only 20 of 40, though. It really was, that was the most disappointing part of this entire thing, was he was 20 of 40 with 2 interceptions and a touchdown. But when you look at everything in this game, they only could run for 84 yards. Isaac Wilson, they got to, Arizona's defense got to him a lot. Micah Bernard was pretty solid, 5.7 yards per carry throughout the game. Dorian Singer, 9 catches for 155 yards, but he was not able to put a touchdown on the board. Utah could have done a lot better, and I would genuinely like to see what this team does with Cam Rising back. There's a reason I'm not punishing them too much when my top 25 drops tomorrow. It's because a healthy Utah team I still think is a top 15 team, even a playoff team, and we just haven't seen them fully healthy yet. Cam Rising, I would like to see come back and be able to kind of prove that this team is legit. Arizona, on the other hand, Not buying in even with that win. I want to see more. They get Texas Tech this weekend in Tucson. A good time to see it. Michigan relatively in control from the start against Minnesota as it kind of went down to the wire. Minnesota brought it back, got to within 3. It was at one point 24-3, and that was in the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden, boom! It's 27-24. I need to see a lot more from this Michigan team. And truth be told, penalties hurt them, and then they got beat because Minnesota started moving fast and Michigan couldn't handle it. If teams utilize that philosophy, this Michigan team is in big trouble for one. But on top of that, this Michigan team cannot throw the football. They haven't even tried. They didn't even try at any point in this game either. And it becomes more and more frustrating the more you watch this team to wonder where they're going to find production. So Michigan is a team that I'm definitely out on. I know where I have them ranked. This week is technically a playoff spot. I don't think this is a playoff team whatsoever. I'm really just kind of waiting for that next shoe to fall and them to find their next game. They're probably going to continue to drop the more they look the way they do. USC able to bounce back from the loss to Michigan. They came out kind of hungover in the first half. They were down 21-10 at halftime. They would then follow that up by scoring 28 unanswered in the second half to win 38-21. USC, a big win. Definitely continuing to look better as the season goes on. LSU and South Alabama. Boy, could I have ever been more wrong about an upset. It did. It wasn't even close. LSU 42-10. They were definitely prepared for South Alabama. Notre Dame and Louisville. I kind of talked about this game earlier. Louisville, it just struggled so bad in the first half. So many mistakes early in that game. Tyler Shuck fumble, a poor snap on a punt, and next thing you know, Notre Dame's up 21-7. You're going, what in the hell happened? They were able to bounce back, and really they were the better team throughout the course of the game. It just was, the mistakes hurt them so bad. This Louisville team's going to bounce back. I still think they're really good. I got them still in my top 20. But they are definitely hurting after the mistakes. And I think they're going to capitalize off of this loss and kind of just cut down on those. Clemson, able to kind of roll once again this week. Cade Klubnik, fantastic once again. Like, Clemson's looking really good. Cade Klubnik. I don't know about Heisman. I think that you would have had to have a better game against Georgia. But Cade Klubnik looks extremely good. And Clemson rolled 40-14. Not a whole lot to say there, but a big win. They go to Tallahassee this week, and to be honest, I'm not too worried. I think they're going to be able to win pretty comfortably. Iowa State and Houston, just a slow game from Iowa State. They just played ball control football. They were up 3-0 at half. They ended up going on to win 20-0. Nothing more to say, to be honest. This was just kind of, hey, we're going to come out. We're going to lull you to sleep, and then eventually we'll pounce, and we're just going to walk out of here with our win, and we don't really care. So, and that's what they did. They did a fantastic job of just playing their game. Oklahoma State on the road against Kansas State, and K-State bouncing back big time. They lost bad in Provo. Did not care one single bit. They come out, and, the first half was close, and from probably the late second quarter all the way through the end of the game, they were dominant. Avery Johnson looked really good. They started throwing the ball better. DJ Giddens was fantastic in this game. This was complete. K-State, personally, still my favorite in the conference, but just the inconsistencies that we've seen so far this season have definitely given me a reason to be concerned. Oklahoma State, on the other hand, they continue to be one of the worst Power 5 defenses in the country, and I need to see something from them soon, but they're out of my top 25, and for rightful reasons. They're just really not a very good football team all around, and Ollie Gordon, still non-existent. Oklahoma survives with a late 17 points after being down 21-10. This game looked all but over, and then next thing you know, here comes Oklahoma. They're back in this game, and they end up winning 27-21. but I'm not buying it. I'm not buying this Oklahoma team. I think that they are definitely struggling pretty bad. And I think that there's just an identity crisis with this team. And Auburn, on the other hand, is just not very good. So neither of these teams really gave me a lot to be excited about or happy about. Oklahoma at least took care of business, I guess, in the end, but they did not look very good throughout the majority. BYU on the road against Baylor got out to a huge lead at one point. Trying to think of what the score was. 31-7 at one point in this game. It was 28-7, sorry. 31-14 at halftime. And then next thing you know, Baylor's like back in this game, and it's 34-28, and they've got opportunities to drive, and they just never capitalized. BYU, though, on the other hand, looked really good. They looked like they kind of just let off the gas a little bit. But they were impressive in this game, and Jake Retzloff's been, I would say, really good. One of the better quarterbacks in the conference so far this season. And this is a team that was not ranked as such in terms of their quarterback positions. So really proud of the team that Kalani Sitake has brought out and really shown that BYU is capable of winning football games. Arkansas and Texas A&M. Arkansas looked good in the first half, and then it all just kind of slowed down. Texas A&M settled. Would end up going on to win 21-17. Taylor Green looked really good. Le'Veon Moss was really good for A&M. They're 4-1, and they're looking okay, but I'm not buying it yet. I don't know what it will take, but I'm not buying it yet. And then Boise State blows out Washington State. It was a close game. John Mateer was able to try to keep this thing close, but at the end of the day, it's Ashton JT, and it's his world, and everybody else is living in it in the Mountain West. 26 carries for 259 yards and 4 more touchdowns. He is on pace to break Barry Sanders' rushing touchdown and yard record in one season. So we will see how that goes as we go forward. But Boise State's in a really good spot, and Ashton JT is the reason for it. Some other quick news to discuss. Army and Navy, both 4-0 for the first time since 1945. That's been one of my favorite things to talk about because I love when the service academy schools are good, specifically Navy, of course. But I love when they're good. I love when they're having a great start to the season. Navy plays Air Force, the first leg of the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy this coming weekend. Of course, go Navy, beat Air Force. Other things of note, really there's not a lot. UNLV jumps in the top 25 for the first time ever. The AP top 25 for the first time ever. And really, this kind of goes to something I said. Do not worry if you're UNLV. Matthew Sluka, you'll never imagine what you had sitting behind him. And Hajj Malik Williams was great in that game on Saturday for UNLV against Fresno State. They went out and dominated in that one. UNLV's legit. Just as legit as Boise State. That game between those two teams cannot come soon enough. But UNLV hosts a Friday night game against Syracuse in Vegas. UNLV wins. They will have 3 wins over Power 4 opponents. Houston and Kansas are their other two. Obviously, Big 12. A win over Syracuse, who's looked really solid early in the season at 3-1. That would be a very, very quality win. So, UNLV is a team that we're excited about going forward. Indiana, that's a team I'm really excited about too. They jump into the top 25 at number 23. Kurt Cignetti was not wrong. He wins everywhere he goes. I saw a video talking about Kurt Cignetti even being the next Nick Saban at Indiana. Well, we don't know, but right now he's coming in. He is winning. Curtis Rourke, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, 2 picks. He's been fantastic. Justice Ellison's looked really good at running back. This is a really good football team, and they're going to be favored in probably every game they play the rest of the season. And they have games against Nebraska to play in Bloomington. They have game against Washington to play in Bloomington. At Michigan State, they'll be favored in that game, certainly. Michigan in Bloomington, I think they'll be favored in that game. If I'm predicting right now to then, Michigan will be the underdog to Indiana. They're already an underdog to Washington, so I'm not certain that they wouldn't be favored here. At Ohio State, that's the game that they will not be favored in. And then Purdue. Indiana, could be 10-0 when they play Ohio State and Columbus. 2 undefeated teams in Columbus on November 23rd. Who'd have thunk it? It could happen. I mean, I'm not saying it will, but it very well could. Similar to my Vanderbilt take, it could happen. It's probably not going to happen, but it could happen. Indiana, though, I think that's a lot more legit that they could go 10-0 and be 11-1, and Indiana would be in the playoffs. Who would have thunk that going into this season? So this year's been great. I'm gonna be re-looking at my playoff predictions, kind of seeing where I've been right and wrong so far. I'm excited. I really am. This season is, I mean, it's really only just begun. We're just 5 weeks in, going into week 6. I can't wait. Hopefully you guys can either. Let me know what you guys think down below. Remember, if you're still in here, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. I will talk to you guys tomorrow morning with the next video. Of course, that's going to be my top 25 reveal for week 6 and Rutgers at Nebraska, that preview as well. So make sure you guys tune in. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below. I'll see you guys in the next one.